My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Victory and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. That wasn't me calling offside. It was just me putting my microphone in. Yeah. How are you doing, James? All right?
I'm doing okay. We are certainly just over now the halfway point of the Australian Open in terms of days. Of course, in terms of matches, we're really down to the crunch. But I'm doing okay at the moment. I think my body's slowly now getting to the stage where I'm ready for it to maybe have tennis in the afternoon instead of always having to be so early in the morning to watch it. But you can't disgruntle a grand slam, and afternoon and evening tennis will soon be upon us.
Yes, right. There is a sort of a point, isn't there? And I think it's about now where, certainly by Tuesday at the latest, where it just gets a little bit easier to keep up and a little bit easier to watch, but because of also the time zone, most of the matches, the men's semi-finals, for example, I remember 2022, the first semi-final started about 4 a.m, I would say. That was the Nadal-Berrettini semi-final. And then the next one just followed after about maybe 8 or something like that. Is that still the case, or is it even later now?
I believe that's the case. I think I remember last year the first semi-finals took place. I think around about 3:30 in the morning, and I did wake up to the final set of that. I remember waking up to the final set of the Djokovic Sinner one from a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And then it's usually around the 8 o'clock start time for the second semi-final, because they sell them as 2 separate sessions, like a day session for one semi and a night session for the other semi. So I suspect that's how it will go, and then it's usually 8:30 UK time when they start the finals for both the men and the women.
All right, let's get into the tennis. Let's begin. So I've got them on the screen. Let's go with the men first today. We had Carlos Alcaraz beating Tommy Paul in straight sets, 7-6, 6-4, 7-5. And he's going to be playing Alex de Minaur in the quarterfinals, because de Minaur managed to dispense of Alexander Bublik in much more comfortable fashion than I think many of us thought. I think even some were predicting a Bublik win. Not me, but I did go for de Minaur, I think, in 5. I think Jack went for Bublik in a similarly tight circumstances. And I can see the arguments for both sides with that one, but the comfort of the victory there would surprise. Just coming back to Alcaraz, I did watch this pretty much from start to finish, despite the ungodly hour that it was on at. I think it began at about 3 a.m. or something like that for me. But Alcaraz, and I think I put this more or less in the title for the brief review we had, was just basically better in every department. And for example, each set was close, but Alcaraz was just, the forehand was just quite a bit better than Tommy Paul's actually, but the serve was marginally better. Tommy couldn't quite get the consistency he wanted. He'd pull up an ace with an incredible spot serve one moment out wide, and then the next minute he was going for body serves that Carlos was reacting to very well. Then the sort of just general rally tolerance that Tommy can have eventually would come undone against Carlos, and that was the case in each set. I will say this, though, the first set could easily have gone Tommy Paul's way. He did have 5-4 mini break advantage in the first set tiebreak, and at that point, the tennis on offer looked 50-50. Carlos needed to hold his nerve, and that's exactly what he did, and maybe Tommy couldn't quite do so in that first set. So, yeah, that was the difference there. As for de Minaur Bublik, I didn't see any of this one. Did you see any of de Minaur Bublik?
This is the one I did catch. I had this one as my main match to watch of the day. Mainly because I remember I remember the match at the Paris Masters a couple of months back where Bublik was really in control of that contest. He was near enough untouchable, and de Minaur was really scrambling in any case in that match to try and stay in it, and it wasn't enough in the end. But this time around, the script really flipped, and I think it flipped because of the conditions. They really played into de Minaur's hands. It was certainly noted that there was quite a funny exchange, a bit of a sweary but a funny exchange that Bublik had with his team midway through the second set when he was already a double breakdown, where he was basically saying to them, look, I can't hit through this guy. This court is so super slow. It's like playing in Indian Wells. There was a couple of F words dotted in there, but basically that was what he was saying. He was comparing the Rod Laver Arena to Indian Wells, and it was something that the commentators were saying as well, which is that there's a lot more space on Rod Laver Arena, so it gives a little bit more time for players to be able to get the balls back. But then also it did just feel like when watching it, comparative to say John Cain or Margaret Court or some of the outside courts, was that it was a lot slower on Rod Laver Arena than it was on the other surfaces, and that helped de Minaur because it meant that he got to a lot more serves that Bublik was putting in. Bublik wasn't able to hit through de Minaur like he was able to do in the Paris Masters 2 months ago. And as such, de Minaur just ran riot. And of course, we get purple patch de Minaur in Australia, and he'll be very chuffed with the fact that he got this all over with in an hour and 32 minutes. And it's another thing where Bublik, we have these expectations, we have these lofty ambitions for him based on what we are seeing on the main tour. But we get to these slams, and he just gets railroaded by people who are ranked better than him.
Yeah, I don't think many of us expected, though. I agree with you, but don't think any of us expected him to get railroaded today by the margin that he did. Sure, he does come up against Yannick, for example. I remember at the French Open last year, and it took him like a while to win a game. I think maybe he went 5-love down, and then he gets that situation where he wins a game, celebrates a little bit, but actually took that momentum into the second set and made it quite an entertaining match until Yannick eventually ran away with it. I don't think we expected that to be the case today, and that's exactly. I mean, I was actually keeping an eye on the scoreboard because I think I was talking about Tien Medvedev at the same time as the first set and a half took place, and there was a spell, at least in terms of the scoreboard, James. That's what I can say is at the end of the first set, I think Bublik was serving to stay in it at 4-5. de Minaur breaks, wins that first set, gets an early break in the second, and that seems like that was the match.
It certainly was. It was Bublik did well in the first set to stay at it. He was able to. Okay. At that stage, de Minaur hadn't really worked out any serving patterns, so Bublik was able to really make hay on his serve to the best he could do. But as soon as it was a double fault that he gave up to give up the first set. Bublik, classic Bublik fashion, and it would be a double fault that he would lose the set on. But as soon as because that was one of the first few service games where Bublik started to feel the pressure from de Minaur as the returner, and I think once that pressure dam broke that he did in that set, it then just the floods continued into sets 2 and 3, and it was really disappointing, really, that Bublik didn't try something different. We got he's now at this new loftier stage of his ranking, of his expectations, that he didn't try and change it up in any meaningful way or form during the match. He just hoped that he could hit flat winners from either his serve or forehands, and when that wasn't working, he was just going to lose the point. And there was nothing different, nothing to really suggest that he could do any different.
Yes, well, can Alex de Minaur do anything different against Carlos Alcaraz? The head-to-head is 5-0. As you can see, de Minaur is currently ranked 6th in the world, so should be a pretty close affair in terms of the ranking. But those of us who have been watching tennis over the last couple of years have noticed a significant gap between Alcaraz and Sinner and the rest. That was partly on display, I think, today against Tommy Paul. Yeah, I mean, the problem for de Minaur is he doesn't really have necessarily the weapon or weapons that could get him into the match against Carlos. It's a similar scenario, of course, against Yannick Sinner. Do you know what the head-to-head with Sinner is? I think it's like 13-0, maybe.
It is. It's something. I mean, like, he has taken a couple of sets off Sinner last year, but that was actually. It
is 13-0. So between the two, exactly, he took a couple of sets you off him recently, but he 18-0 between these two players, and the only reason I think it's not worse is because he just hasn't played Carlos as often as Yannick. So
the interesting thing's going to be the conditions on Tuesday, because it's predicted to be 42 degrees on Tuesday, so we can very much safely assume that the roof is going to go on all the main courts. So could that play? I mean, Demon's a bit of a menace indoors. Could that potentially even it up?
Could help
in
a bit.
Way that could help a bit.
Aussie crowd might give him might push him to a set as well, but I don't think I'm going much beyond that. I will just have a quick look at their previous encounters before I get your final thoughts on this match up. Their previous encounters have come on indoor hard, clay, indoor hard, outdoor grass, and outdoor clay. So quite a mixed bunch there. The clay ones I would expect to go Carlos's way, although actually they had a really, really good match in Barcelona. That was their first encounter in 2022.
Demon should have won that match in Barcelona as well. He had 2 match points on the Alcaraz serve, and he was in the rally on both of them. But yeah, he should have won that one in Barcelona, Demon.
Interesting,
But the one to pick out there that I think is the one that could be similar conditions to what we'll see. On Tuesday will be certainly that Rotterdam result, because that one, both it was a split set, and then it was just Carlos was able to really just sort of run away with it in the third, and that match may give us a good indication of what we could expect to see in the match on Tuesday. Definitely Tuesday night. Like, there's no way this is not going to be the night session match on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, highlighting that Rotterdam encounter. Some people may have been surprised that de Minaur took a set in that match. I think actually I went for 3 sets just because Carlos had yet to win, I think, an indoor title and had looked good during the week, but de Minaur had also looked very good as well. And I just thought this is probably the best scenario for de Minaur to meet Carlos Alcaraz in an indoor hard final. Maybe he could look towards the Turin scenario, but then we can see the scoreline there even more comfortable for Carlos in terms of it being a straight sets win that they had in Turin recently. I'm gonna give de Minaur a set. I just think that he's just too gritty, too quick, too good, and too solid, that he could just, for example, take the tie break that Tommy Paul lost today. I think that might well be a tie break that de Minaur gets over the line, especially in front of the home crowd. But whatever result occurs, I find it difficult with the evidence in front of us to predict anything other than a Carlos Alcaraz win. What about you?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it'll be an Alcaraz win. I could see maybe it going to 5 sets. I think we will see like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 de Minaur, and these are conditions at the Australian Open that have been on paper the worst ones of Alcaraz's career so far, just because he's not got past the quarterfinals. So this is going to be him trying to break a new barrier, which he should do at some point very soon. But it's
true. He's not got past the quarterfinals before. Yeah, good point. Yeah, that's a thing. That's something for de Minaur to clutch to.
Yeah, it's a thing that he can clutch to, and thing is Demon as well. But also the thing on his side is that he will be looking for his first semi-final at a Grand Slam as well. It's something he's not got past the quarterfinals of any Grand Slam. But granted, he's come up against top quality opponents in his quarterfinals, which has kind of stopped it. So I think definitely Carlos will win. I could see it going to 5, but I do think the Spaniard will come through in the end.
I do just want to highlight some breaking news for me, but I'm sure there are many that it's not breaking news and they heard it a few hours ago, but I've only just found out in the last, 15 minutes or so. In fact, it looks like it broke about 4 hours ago via Jakub Mensik on Instagram. He's been forced to withdraw from the Australian Open due to an abdominal muscle injury and advances to the quarterfinals. These are Mensik's words. Did you know this, by the way?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Djokovic advances to the quarterfinals, and this is what Mensik had to say. This is a tough one to write. After doing everything we could to keep going, I have to withdraw from the Australian Open due to an abdominal muscle injury that has progressed over the last few matches. I must say, I didn't see it apparent in the previous couple of rounds that I saw of Mensik, but there we go. After long discussions with my team and doctors, we decided not to step on court tomorrow. Even though I'm disappointed, making the 4th round here for the first time is something I will carry with me for a long time. Well, hopefully he carries it with him until he gets to a quarterfinal, which hopefully will be this year from his perspective. Anyway, that's not his words, that's mine. I'm just adding that. I felt so much energy from the fans, and the atmosphere in Melbourne was truly special. Thank you to my team for being with me every step, and to everyone sending messages and cheering. It means more than you know. Now it's time to properly recover. Well, there goes my Novak Djokovic prediction to go out to Jakub Mensik. And I mean, obviously, I couldn't foresee that, especially as I saw Jakub playing and seemed to be okay. But it is what it is. I think it's obviously a very mature and sensible decision. You don't want to be messing up your entire season by pushing an ab injury is just waiting to explode, basically.
It's interesting that because an abdominal injury is it seems to be happening a lot in players that are both tall and have big serves. We've seen it with Berrettini. Jack Draper's had a similar issue. I think Ben Shelton at some stage, maybe a couple of years ago as well, had a bit of an abdominal strain that took place. And it is that additional pressure that you put into your midriff that, when you're really trying to power on those serves. And for those players, for a Jakub, for a Berrettini, they're very reliant on their serve as a key part of their game. And he obviously felt as though he was going to make it worse by going on the court. And you really rack up your abs. You could be out for 6 to 8 months. And the last thing Jakub would want, given the rise that he's had, he's into the top 20. He's got to think about those Miami points that he's going to have to try and defend as best he can in March. That he doesn't really want to be. That he really doesn't want to be, just destroying his abs in any great way. So it's a smart, sensible move by the lad. He's got plenty of years ahead of him. Is he still a teenager, or has he just turned 20?
I think he might be 20, but yeah.
But he's taking the long-term view of his body and realizing that short term he could have a great match against Djokovic, but if he ends up wrecking his abs for 8 months of the season, then it's a pretty pointless exercise. So hopefully he can recover well and be able to hit some tournaments in February.
Yep, indeed. Okay, back to the draw itself. Obviously, that means Djokovic is through to the quarterfinals. And just looking at a stat here tweeted by Jose Morgado, Djokovic has entered 81 Grand Slams, and he has reached the quarterfinals at 65 of those, over 80%. And it is ridiculous. I do think that perhaps maybe we should hold off on the incredible Djokovic statistics reaching a quarterfinal, bearing in mind he's just got a walkover. But nevertheless, the point still stands.
You know what? I know it's a really weird thing to say, but I think Djokovic gets a bit more of a rub of a green from withdrawals than I think any other player recently.
I was really looking forward to this one because the first 3 rounds were just really, exactly. And then I thought, okay, well now actually, to be fair, he's got arguably one of the tougher 4th round opponents, and this happens.
I just remember, I think Djokovic has had certainly in the last 5 years or so, 3 or 4 players that have pulled out around about quarterfinal or 4th round match before playing him. He's a jammy old git. I'll give him that for getting himself into the side of the draw of injured players. But it's part and parcel of the competition. We know how old Djokovic is, and if he wants to be performing at his best, it may give him a bit more motivation to think that he could maybe beat a Sinner in the semi-finals and make that run to try and get that last 25th Grand Slam and overtake Margaret Court.
Another match that was probably a little bit more one-sided than I expected was Alexander Zverev against Francisco Cerundolo. Of course, Cerundolo had a favourable head-to-head going in. It was 3-2 in Fran's favour, but that, of course, now is 3-all after Zverev won today in straight sets. Just a little bit to talk about this on because it was on at the same time as Tien against Medvedev, so I wasn't able to keep across it that much other than the scoreline, etc. But just quickly having a quick look at the stats, I do see that Cerundolo is getting less than 50% of his first serves in, wasn't able to attack the Zverev forehand. Oh, sorry, that's actually across the first set. Let me have a look at the total. Sorry. First serves in for Cerundolo. Where are we? I've got to go back. First serves in. Yeah, it was second serve win point. Sorry, second serve win percentage was 42% for Fran. which is obviously a slightly underwhelming stat. And he also wasn't able to attack the Zverev forehand anywhere near as often as he would like. In terms of the break points won, he only managed to garner 2 break points the entire match on the Zverev serve, whereas Zverev had 8 opportunities and took 5 of them. So that is Zverev through to the quarterfinals yet again. It's the 3rd year in the row he's reached this stage.
I will say he's certainly he's looking sneaky good. He is looking a bit sneaky good, Zverev, I would say. You know, certainly from sets 2 and 3 from the Norrie match, and then on to this match here. Serve is banging in. Forehand seems to be working fairly well at the moment. You know, if he can be a bit more aggressive in those big matches, you never know. He could be a bit of a problem. Because he's due to potentially meet Alcaraz in the semis if he gets through Lerner TM, which we'll get onto in a bit. But he's due to meet Alcaraz potentially in the semis. He has beaten Alcaraz here at the Australian Open a couple of years ago.
Of course, yeah.
Could this be a situation where Zverev may in a very unlikely turn of events, given how poorly he played in the United Cup? Could he potentially be looking to get to the final again of the Australian Open?
Is this right? This is his 40th career Grand Slam quarterfinal. That seems wildly over the top, but that's what the Australian Open have tweeted.
This is his 40th Grand Slam quarterfinal.
That does seem a lot, considering Djokovic has made 85.
I'm guessing it makes sense because he's always been pretty much a high seed, so he's always avoided a lot of big players. Only the point, and he did have a couple of surprise quarterfinal runs.
That would mean averaging 10. No, he's not been in 8.
Wimbledon, he hasn't even got to Wimbledon quarterfinal yet, has he not?
So listen, if this stat is correct, which I'm almost certain it is not, that would mean he's averaging 10 quarterfinals at each slam. And we know it's not even probably a quarterfinal at Wimbledon, not even one. And if it is one, it's one, something like that. That would mean he'd be averaging around 13 at each of the others. Well, he's only been on the tour for 9 years, so he's getting 1 or 2 per year.
I'm going to do something terrible, so I'm going to ask Google Gemini this question.
Do it. Ask Google Gemini.
How many Grand Slam quarterfinals has Alexander Zverev got to?
Because just I mean, I have to respond to this tweet because it's so inaccurate. And have I missed 16? Yeah, that makes more sense. Have I?
Five in Australia, 7 at the French, 4 at the US Open, and none at Wimbledon.
It does say that. Relentless Asher Zverev reaches his 40th career Grand Slam final. That's just a wild inaccuracy. That when I was just thinking, well, Djokovic has been in 85. He's been in half as many and not won one. So it's 16.
I think it's 16.
I'm just going to respond.
Is it like a 40th quarterfinal in his career, like generally, with including the main tour? I mean,
maybe, yeah. Maybe that makes.
But it insinuates with the tweet that it's 40 Grand Slam quarterfinals, not 40, not 40 main tour quarterfinals.
Can you also just check to see when he joined the main tour? I'm going to say 2016.
I think it was 2016. When he turned pro or when he joined the main tour?
Joined the main tour. When was his first slam? I remember he was at the 20.
Was Alexander Zverev's first Grand Slam.
Thank you. I would say it definitely the 2017 Australian Open because I remember him playing Rafa in 5 sets actually.
Let me get up his Wikipedia profile. He usually has that brilliant little graphic. Playing career, professional food. Well, I don't know. Everyone's probably listening. Go, why are they talking about this then? So we've got here that his first appearance in qualifying was at the 2014 US Open, where he got to the second qualifying round. His first main tour appearance, main draw appearance, was Wimbledon 2015 when he got to the second round.
All right. I'm just basically going to write this. This is wildly inaccurate. To have done so, he would have had to have made the quarterfinals at every Grand Slam where he entered the main draw. Because actually, from the beginning of 2016, that would be the case because it would be 10 years or so.
And he has 2 Grand Slams that he missed out of injury.
Of course, yeah. So I've written entered the main draw, but there we go. All right, that'll do. Tweet done. Aussie Open Twitter account. The interesting thing is normally I see corrections immediately below them. I do see people now writing below saying, look, yeah, exactly. Someone here's written, there's no way he's got 40 Grand Slam quarterfinals, considering he's 28 years old and never reached a Wimbledon quarterfinal. By that logic, he would have reached a quarterfinal on all 3 remaining slams from the age of 15. Nice one, Sebastian, at X36GG. Nice one. That is cool. But anyway, listen, he is through and yeah, has an excellent chance of reaching the semis yet again. Of course, he made the quarters in 2023 because he got that year to the semis where he lost to Medvedev, and then in 2025, of course, he made the final before losing to Jannik Sinner. So it is a place where he has pretty fond memories. He's going to be playing in the quarterfinal. Lerner Tien, and I saw this match from start to finish. And first of all, on Medvedev, just had no idea on how to win points at various points. That's not necessarily his fault. I actually think, yes, he did kind of from the end of the second set. There was an underarm serve. There was also a serve that he went for a ridiculous service position, as in like he went out wide to create the angle. He did actually end up winning that point. But I think it was a sign of just him being extremely frustrated at this point, as he was just being schooled by Lerner. Lerner had a run of 11 games in a row from the end of the... Yeah, I know, yeah. Lerner and school. Lerner had a run of 11 games in a row from the end of the first set all the way to the beginning of, or midpoint almost, of the third, because he was 4-love up in that third set before I think his concentration went. But Lerner Tien, honestly, was sensational today. His serve was pretty good, didn't face a break point until the third set. Yes, Medvedev maybe could have done a slightly better job on return, but considering that's the weakest pretty much part of his game, to have your serve fit and firing, and you've obviously got an excellent chance. He obviously had all the rally tolerance and defense that we'd expect, but also the forehand down the line, obviously being a lefty going into the Medvedev sort of forehand area, but also one that had a bit more space on it. It was also something that Michael Chang, his coach, mentioned to him at one point, saying just keep going down the line, pulling that trigger at the right moment, etc. And honestly, for 2.5 sets, you probably won't see a better individual performance this year. Certainly so far, but even for the rest of the year. And one more thing, I think Vance tweeted basically, which was going through my mind too, talking about the number of opponents that Medvedev has come up against, Djokovic, Nadal on a fairly regular basis at Grand Slams and in big matches, but also against Thiem and Cilic and so many others. And yet he's never looked this lost on a tennis court as he does against Lerner Tien. And by the way, I can imagine Vance smiling as he tweeted.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. I wonder if Vance stayed up for the match. No, it would have been right in the middle of the night.
No, I think it would have been okay for him. It would have been about 7 or 8 p.m.
Oh,
yeah, because it finished, I would guess, around 9, maybe a little bit later, but it would have probably finished about 1 a.m. for him.
Oh, okay, so probably Vance was up. He's asleep right now. He's getting his rest now. But yeah, because of course he's West Coast, so he's got a few more hours to be able to play with. Yeah, so it was it's just one of those terrible matchups now for Medvedev. And maybe for me, I watched the first set, and it very much felt like that start where Medvedev got broken straight away maybe set a bit of a tone. Yes, he was able to recover in that set to at least hold his next 4 service games, but didn't really get much purchase in the Tien serve. And yeah, it's just one of those matches where Tien's going to see Medvedev on the order paper and going to go, absolutely, bring him to me. I'm ready for this. This is my sort of matchup. And it's a real shame, really, because from big picture stuff, we had Medvedev winning Brisbane in the first week of the year, looking a lot better, looking as though he was starting to get a bit of a mojo back. Some of the rally tolerance was coming back. His first serve speed started to go up a little bit, so it was looking more dangerous on his own serve. And this kind of really just derails it. That momentum that was building from Medvedev has just felt like it's now vanished. And the same questions about the relevance of Daniil Medvedev at the top of the men's game are going to come back again. And he's got a couple of months left of the hard court to try and show what he can do before going off to services that he's not necessarily too akin to. And it's just a shame, really. Certainly, if you're a Medvedev fan of, and also we could potentially look at what happened 2 days ago with the Marijan match and the fact that he went 2 sets down there, and these slips are still there for Medvedev. He's not locking in as like he did when it was 21, 22, 2019, all those dates there. It was, this is Medvedev of now, and he'll get the odd good win here or there, and we'll pick up the odd small to medium title here or there. But that may be about it now between now and the rest of the career.
Indeed. Just putting a bit of laptop and switching mics. Okay. Yeah, indeed. All fair points. And one other thing that you sort of brought up, Semi, anyone I want to add is that, yeah, he got broken at the beginning of every set and never was able to get back into it. Well, he sort of got back into the third, but he was already a double breakdown at that juncture. Okay, Lerner Tien, Alexander Zverev in the quarterfinal. What do we think for this?
I would say certainly I would back Zverev to win, potentially in 4. I just feel as though Zverev will. I mean, bizarrely to say this, but I think he'll be more aggressive than what Medvedev was in this contest. And that weapon that Zverev has of that first serve being so deadly will just keep him out in front. And they've got a 1-1 record, I believe. Was the one he lost? Was that the one in Acapulco? I'm thinking.
Yeah, Acapulco. Yeah.
With the one in Acapulco, and I think Zverev had a sickness, had some sort of poisoning when that match took place, and we can very much see from when they played at Roland Garros, it was a pretty straightforward affair for Zverev to come through that contest, and I could imagine maybe a similar scoreline, maybe Lerner picking up a set, but there's a different kettle of fish playing Zverev than it is to play Medvedev in 26.
Yeah, I'm just going Zverev. I'm going to go 5 sets, but I wouldn't be surprised if Tien gets the first set and then Zverev is struggling basically to get back in the match from there on in. And I'm only going Zverev really just because it's a Grand Slam, more experience. Lerner has done incredibly well with 2, by the way, incredible performances, because the Nuno Borges performance was extremely good as well. But Zverev is actually playing probably his best tennis in a year. And as you said, he's sort of quietly playing very well and getting to the quarterfinals. And just where they're at in their careers, I think this is a must-win for Zverev, which might add some pressure for him, because I think it's a free hit for Lerner. He's obviously reached the further of a Grand Slam than he's ever reached before, and of course he made the 4th round last year, and now he's in the quarters. Lerner, by the way, may well be thinking about top 10 ambitions for the year. I don't think that's beyond him, although I think anything basically beyond where he was last year, i.e. winning a title and finishing, let's say, in the top 20, I think would still be another huge step forward for Lerner. But yeah, I'm going to go for Zverev in 5.
Yeah, I can see Zverev in 5 or 4 for Zverev is how I think it'll go.
Sure. Okay, that is the men's side done. Let's move on to the women's side, which began for me and many others. I know Fergus was doing a watch along for this one, with Sabalenka beating Mboko, and for a set and 3/4, basically until Sabalenka was serving for it. This was Sabalenka doing what Sabalenka does in Australia, and also producing probably the best best tennis of her tournament so far, to be that far in front of someone who's playing very well like Victoria Mboko. And I know Mboko had 1 or 2 concerns about the strapping on her leg, but it didn't seem to be disrupting her too much in the tournament so far, at least in terms of the eye test. But Sabalenka was up 6-1 and I think 5-4. But then Mboko breaks back, and we do end up going into the tiebreak. And Sabalenka did have a wobble or 2 against Potapova in similar circumstances. She had a double break advantage against Potapova in the previous round that she let go until they went into the tiebreak. And of course, against Potapova, it was 2 tiebreaks that won the match. Another tiebreak here, meaning 20 Grand Slam tiebreaks in a row she has won, which is, and I've used this word already on the show, in fact, I've used it a few times, I think, that is wild.
It is an outstanding 20 tiebreaks in a row that you've won. I mean, you've got to remember tiebreaks that they're the first to 7. You could have a bad start to a tiebreak and go 3-0 down, and that could be the tiebreak over. In some circumstances. So to be able to win that many in a row, I mean, there was a tweet that there was a stat that popped out that it meant she beat Novak Djokovic, who was sitting at 19 tiebreaks in a row. that he won. I think that was from like a couple of years back. And he tweeted underneath something that she put out saying he's not happy about it, and he feels a bit distraught, which was quite funny from Djokovic. And also, given the fact that there tends to be more opportunities, certainly in the women's game, to be able to break your opponent on a tiebreaker. Serves aren't as strong or final as they can be on the men's game. So for Sabalenka to still be as strong as possible on that, it's just wondrous, and it's the form we expect from her going into going into this stage of the tournament. She knows she's just winning through her matches, getting herself to the end stage. I mean, the amount of publicity, like it very much does feel like this is Sabalenka's slam, really. I mean, you turn on the TV in the UK and there's a couple of adverts that always pop up for Sabalenka, and we're seeing all the big partnerships that she was able to announce this over the last couple of weeks. And yeah, it's just remarkable that it looks as though she's probably going to be going for her third Grand Slam title here in Australia with the way things are going.
Another young gun stands in her way in the form of Iva Jovic. Iva Jovic, by the way, it's also 8 quarterfinals in a row, just to highlight that. 8 hardcourt, I think it is, quarterfinals in a row. But she's also, she was absent, I think, from the 2023 French Open, but I'm pretty sure whenever she enters it, she was also absent from the 2020. That's my bad. She was absent from the 2024 Wimbledon. But I think she's just basically always getting to the quarterfinals, it feels like to me. But anyway, that's we all know Sabalenka's incredible consistency. She's shown it here again. She's going to be playing Iva Jovic in the next round, who beat Putintseva love and won, which was a very striking scoreline. These two, by the way, Sabalenka and Jovic, have never played before. That's probably not the biggest surprise. Regarding some of the stats from the Jovic win, and I think really now, if you haven't sat up and taken notice of Iva Jovic, then you certainly should do now, because that is an incredibly startling scoreline. But yeah, regarding the stats from this particular encounter with Putintseva, I mean, Putintseva sort of didn't seem to have the fight in her by the latter stages of this particular encounter. But so solid from Iva across all parts of her game. Over 70% first serves in, actually winning more than 70% on her second serve. Whereas, listen to this from Putintseva. I mean, obviously, love and won, you're not winning many points. But she won just 27% of her first serves. So she was very underpowered today, and no matter how much guile she had on the court, she wasn't able to do any damage to Iva whatsoever. Breaking just once. That one game that she did win was a break of serve, but Iva actually had 12 breakpoint opportunities before converting 6 of them. Jovic against Sabalenka. Thoughts?
I mean, I'm hoping that Jovic will be able to put in a performance. I fear that we may get a match that was somewhat similar to the Boko match. Another really strong young prospect, but Sabalenka just out. This will probably be the first time that Iva's played somebody this tournament who will have more power than her, that will be stronger than her on the court. And it's how she's going to be able to deal and adapt to that. And in the past we've seen these sorts of contests, and they tend to be pretty one-sided. I mean, I could imagine Jovic picking up a couple of games or maybe 3 games in a set, but I would probably expect Sabalenka to come through in straights. Maybe one of them could go to a tiebreaker, but it's Sabalenka's really.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Sabalenka in 2 tight sets.
Okay,
I think it will be competitive. Yeah, I think we'll be competitive. Just some nice stats regarding Iva's run. She is the youngest player in the top 100 currently. She's also the youngest player still in the draw, and she obviously got her first top 10 win over Jasmine Paolini in the previous round. If you haven't hopped on the train, it's still time to remember the name Iva Jovic. That's a nice little rhyming there from the Roland Garros official account. And let's see. I think she's going to be as competitive, if not more so, than Mboko. And even if this year is just 1 year too early for her, keep an eye out for her across the rest of the season. But anyway, yeah, I think both of us have Sabalenka progressing to another Australian Open semi-final. That would, of course, be her 4th in a row. Moving on down the draw, we have... looks like I've just lost the draw momentarily. I'm going to get it back, though. women's singles. Yeah, moving on down the draw, we have in the other matches that took place today, Coco Gauff doing what Coco Gauff always seems to do against Karolína Muchová, as in winning the match, albeit this one was in 3 sets as opposed to some of the other straight sets wins she's had before. Svitolina ending Mira Andreeva's run. I have a couple of things to say on Gauff and Muchová. Feel free to add. But actually, Svitolina Andreeva I didn't see. But just before I come to you,
I did see that one. Svitolina Andreeva.
That helps me a lot.
Both sides.
Yeah, indeed. Gauff Muchová, first set was kind of just exactly what we'd always seen in this matchup before. The Muchová guile, the Muchová craft, the Muchová intelligence on the court just doesn't do anything to Coco. Coco is not going to be struggling to get down to those slices or to be reacting to some of the other unusual or unique points that Muchová can offer just because of her athleticism. And at the end of the first set, it just felt like most of the Gauff Muchová matches that I'd seen before. I actually thought when they played at the US Open semi-final, I actually didn't know how to call that one in 2023. But since then, I've been watching their matchup with close interest and somewhat disappointment in terms of Muchova's position, because of course she's yet to win. I think she's yet to win a main tour title, which is wild considering she's been in a Grand Slam final and was a breakup in the third, and also been in Grand Slam semi-finals, including here in Australia. That is now, I think it's 5-0. I don't know if this exactly, it's 5-0 for Gauff now against Muchová, because this is up until today, the 4-0 that you see on your screen. And that is the first time that Muchova's won a set. I will say this, though. In the third set, it was intriguing. And by the way, the second set, Muchová went up a break and was threatening a double break, but didn't get it to go. Was actually threatening to basically hold serve at 2-love and consolidate. And I just thought, get to 3-love and you probably win this set. But Gauff broke back. But hats off to Muchová. She didn't let that get her down and broke again, because against someone that you've never won a set before, you go up an early break and you cede that advantage. You can imagine how mentally that would be a tough one. But yeah, okay, maybe Gauff's serve went slightly wandering at that juncture. But ultimately, the third set reverted back to the norm. And it just, even at 1 set all, it didn't really feel like there was that much doubt about the ultimate outcome. I'm just going to have a quick look to see if there were many double faults from Coco today. 3. That's not bad. In fact, it's really good. 1 per set for her. And I saw Gavin McMillan applauding basically every point, and I think the cameras were going on him a lot more than they would have done a couple of years ago, given his profile now and how that's been raised. So Coco is through, and as I said, she's going to be playing Svitolina in the quarterfinals. Svitolina beating Andreeva in a scoreline that surprises me a little bit. 6-4, 6-2 was it, or 6-2, 6-4?
Yes, 6-2, 6-4. It was a match where basically Svitolina locked down. She locked down she wasn't giving away any mistakes. She was forcing Andreeva to extend the rallies, and when she forced Andreeva to extend the rallies, that's when she was able to get the mistakes out of Andreeva. I will say that Andreeva was quite readable during the contest. There was a lot of occasions where Andreeva came to the net, but Svitolina just knew exactly where in the court Andreeva was going to place the ball and was there ready to return it back. And in a way that kind of maybe that kind of frustrated Andreeva, and then there were situations where it may have been a baseline exchange, and Svitolina was just so good at moving Andreeva from one side of the court to the other, and it was very rare that Andreeva could really get on top of the point and really get pushing forward, and that kind of led to the sort of scoreline that you end up seeing. And all credit to Svitolina, got to the quarterfinals here last year, gets to the quarterfinals again, and downs another Russian that she's been doing a fair bit during this AO run.
Yes, indeed. There we go. Anyway, Coco Gauff, Svitolina is going to be coming up next. Looking at their head-to-head, it's 2-1 in favor of Coco Gauff. She won her 2 matches against the Ukrainian in New York at the US Open in 2024. That was en route to the... no, that wasn't the year she won the title. She won it in 23, didn't she? So, yeah, that was the round of 32 in 2024. She also won in Auckland in 2024, but she actually lost their first encounter at the Australian Open in 2024. 2021. How do you see this one going?
Well, the head-to-head suggests that there has been tight matches. I mean, even the matches that Coco Gauff has won, she's had to come from a set down to do so.
Yeah.
This could be a real test for Coco. Someone who's solid in really great form. I mean, Svitolina, coming off the Auckland title this year, very much, is she could bring that lockdown nature, really make Coco extend the points. You could see a world where Svitolina wins. But then similarly, Coco Gauff has got through a lot of her opponents quite well this tournament. There's a world where Coco could be quite comfortable in this contest. But in my mind, I'm deciding slightly that I could see a bit of an upset. I think Svitolina could do it in 3 sets, but I could see it being like a very tight last set that could decide this contest.
Are you going to go with that then? Go on, give me a prediction.
Yeah, I'm going to go Svitolina in 3.
Wow.
But I can see it well where Coco wins it. But yeah, Svitolina in 3. I'm going that way.
Wow, that's a big call. I'm going Coco in 3. I also think Coco straight is a possibility. I think we are seeing in these previous rounds and probably this year as a whole, United Cup included, where obviously Coco got another win over Iga. I think we're seeing Coco at. I'm not sure if she's quite yet at North American swing levels of the US Open or the way she won the WTA finals in 2025. Well, I actually think her level, 2024, I actually think her level in that spell was in the 2024, taking her through the Asian swing, but also taking her to that title in Riyadh, coming from behind in the third set to Wen Zheng. I actually thought her level of tennis in that period was even higher than what she produced in the US Open. But I think we are in that conversation very soon. Probably has to make at least the final here, maybe even win the title to have a strong case to say this is the best tennis that she's playing. But there is something a little bit more solid about her. Maybe it's a placebo effect, both in terms of for her as a player, but also me as a viewer, in terms of the fact that actually just her having Gavin McMillan there is making me think that the forehand is. I watched the forehand quite a bit today as well. I saw Muchova going for the forehand, but she doesn't attack the forehand in the same way that other players do. She's sort of floating that ball down the line. But that can also be tricky for Coco. Certainly has been in the past when she's just got a lot of time on the forehand and she still messes it up. But actually, she played with a decent amount of margin and a decent amount of confidence that it wasn't a problem today. The double faults, as I already highlighted, was not a problem today. And I do think we are seeing a slightly more solid Coco, as well as all the athleticism. And I think it will carry her to victory. But I'll go 3 sets. Listen, I don't dislike your prediction. I think Svitolina can beat her. But she's probably going to have to produce her absolute best tennis and maybe even hope that Coco just have a small dip. Okay, I think that's it, James, in terms of the quarterfinals upcoming and just about everything else. There will be a last ball dropped tomorrow. It might well be the last one of the tournament. For those of you new to the concept, basically, I like it so we can get it. The problem is with the quarterfinals. Once the quarterfinals are finished, I often do a preview for the upcoming semifinals, pretty much live on air. So that's why, because obviously I'll do watch-alongs, I think, for all the quarterfinals. And as soon as the 2 quarterfinals have completed, basically, to then give us a matchup for the semis, that's when I'll dive into it. So make sure you tune into our watch-alongs, but there'll also be videos of those. So probably tomorrow, which is going to be with Mert Tunga, the former coach of course, Zainab Sommes. We're going to have last ball drop with him tomorrow, which will probably be the last ball or last ball drop of this tournament.
Oh, that would be such a shame. Yeah, but no, it's makes sense. Of course, as we get to the real nitty gritty stage of who's going to be the champion at the end of the tournament.
Who have you got? Let's give this final question. Women's winner.
Women's winner, Sabalenka. It sounds boring, but it feels like the most, this based on the evidence that we've got at the moment, it just seems like the most obvious pick. Do you want a men's winner?
Yeah.
I was a bit silly and I went Medvedev. But yes, I know.
You can obviously give us another one.
I drunk the Brisbane Kool-Aid on that one there, and I really shouldn't have. So I would say I'm going to go Sinner.
Yeah, I think
he's now going to get all the perfect conditions. The chance for Sinner to go out was when he was hot and bothered and got those full body cramps yesterday, and then the roof came on, and it was a godsend for him again. And then that's probably the best chance we had of Sinner not making the final. So I fully expect that he'll be there and he'll win it.
Yep. We might have one watch along tonight. I'm hopeful that we'll have someone doing Pegula versus Keys. So do keep an eye out on that and make sure you click subscribe, but also hit that notification bell. And fingers crossed we can have someone for Pegula Keys. And I'll probably do one tomorrow morning. I was looking at the schedule and thinking, that one looks like a good one to do. But it could have been Jovic Mensik actually that I was looking at for that possibly. So I'm just trying to remember, but I think it was Jovic Mensik. The second one on Rod Laver I was thinking for tomorrow morning, and I think it was going to be Mensik against. Okay, so now they've moved things around a bit. So Shelton Root.
Yeah, do you want the order?
I've got it here. I can see it now. Yeah.
You got it.
This is all Rod Laver, of course. They have moved, I'm pretty sure, at least maybe they moved Inglis Fiontek. I'm not sure. They moved one match, I'm sure, over because I'm pretty sure that it was Mensik against.
Yeah, because when they originally released it, instead of Shelton Root was the last match on John Kane, and it was the Djokovic versus Mensik match that was last on Rod Laver, but they moved the Shelton match over there, so it means that there's only one singles match on John Kane tomorrow, and that's the Wang versus Anisimova match. And then, of course, the big surprise was that Sinner versus Sinner is on Margaret Court, but at night
it's going to be, it says not, it's officially day session, but because of the three matches that precede it, it will end up being nighttime. Yeah, so that's, I think, good news for Yannick in a way.
Yeah, he's not before 6 a.m. The sun's going to go. For him, it doesn't really matter. He won't matter too much. But I think he was probably told that if he wanted to play on Rod Laver, it was going to be in a day session tomorrow. And he went, do you know what? I'll happily take night session on Margaret Court if it means I can avoid the heat of the day. Yeah. And as I said, put the Mazzetti Fritz match on there, which to be honest, you look at that schedule and you think actually the more competitive match, and with still two high quality opponents, is the Mazzetti Fritz and the Shelton Rood match, and it makes more sense for them to be there because as much as Darderi's done really well to get to the fourth round here, being the 22nd seed, we expect that to be quite a straightforward match for Sinner to come through, and it's better to have a contest on the big court than basically just a drubbing in the evening session, especially when you get to the fourth round when people are expecting at least a contest on both their matches, whereas in rounds 1 and 2, that's where you can have a straightforward, straight sets victory, and people are just happy to be sat on the big court watching watching the top player play.
I think the two matches for me of most interest will be Pegula Keys and Shelton Rood. I do think there is a chance that Pegula gets her teeth into the match quite quickly. Same with Ben against Casper, and it ends up being a couple of fairly comfortable straight wins for those two players. I've got Shelton and Pegula winning those two matches. That's not to say that Casper can't win, and Madison, of course, definitely can beat Jessica. But those are the two. Musetti Fritz should be good as well if Fritz is fit and healthy, and I think there's loads of question marks around that. Oh, something I didn't even know was that Leylah Fernandez is playing doubles alongside Nick Kyrgios.
She is indeed. They won a first round match a couple of days ago, and now they're into the second round. It's a pretty tasty combo actually on paper if you look at their games. Nick's big serve, Fernandez's feel at the net. It's you could see them as a potential winner of the title maybe in the mixed ups.
Yeah, well, obviously, Kyrgios has a doubles title here on the men's side, and Leylah's very good in the doubles and done well in the past at that format. All right, well, listen, big thanks for joining me today, James.
No worries. It's glad to be on. Follow up the last Sunday with this Sunday. This keeps in uniformity.
Going to see you on Saturday as well, alongside Nick for the women's final. I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. It's we could get maybe a Swiatek Sabalenka or
could do. We keep thinking that might happen. I don't think it will, but I've been convinced it's going to happen in the past, and it never did. And of course, we've been 1 point away on at least 2 occasions, because I think Sabalenka had a match point against Muchova in 2023 at the French Open, and this time last year, Iga had a match point, of course, against Madison Keys. So we've been 1 point away on 2 occasions.
it's a big question of our time. They've been the top two players for the last sort of 5 years. Are we finally going to get a Sabalenka-Swiatek final? Are we finally going to get that in the a Grand Slam?
I think Sabalenka would want it to be in Melbourne, and Iga would probably want it to be at the French Open. Yeah, Roland Garros, of course. But I think actually across the other three, even Wimbledon, I think Arena would be okay with that as well.
Given the fact that Swiatek's won it, would be seen as
I know, but I just look at that win that Iga had, as incredible as it was. You know, beating some of the players that she beat en route. Clara Tauson was a huge win, I think, for that title. But I still think that actually the grass court prowess of Arena is possibly higher. And yes, you'll say, well, she's won Wimbledon. That's a great argument against it. But if you look at the consistency that Arena's had on that surface in terms of making semis at Wimbledon before on 3 occasions, and really probably could have won and should have won all 3 of those semis. But that's the case of so many good players' careers, I know. But anyway, listen, that's a story for another day. Big thanks for joining me today, James.
No worries. Thanks for having me on, John. Well, as we continue on into the last week of the Australian swing, and then, like I said at the beginning of the show, the afternoon tennis will start to appear in our horizon.
Yes, tournaments such as Rotterdam, Rio, and Buenos Aires. Yeah, that's a lot more amenable the time zone. All right, thanks for that, James, and I'll speak to you soon.
So, see you there on.
And to everybody else, you know the drill.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.